This episode of the Sloopcast is brought to you by the Mad Canadian BBQ Company. Mad Canadian BBQ Company is an Ohio-based company where they usually say our seasoning will take your barbecue from good to great. Great seasonings such as going in the vegetable rubs that is over at the madcanadianbbq.com. The OPE. The OPE is the, as he puts it here, it's the Midwest consistence of cornfields and ranch dressing. This is the Mad Canadian's twist on it. It's a wonderful smoked ranch blend destined to make your guests say, let me just squeeze by you and get some more of that barbecue. Or the Sonoran Heat, one of my favorites over at the madcanadianbbq.com. Great for on chicken wings to tacos and everything in between. It has that Southwest spice and heat that goes great on everything. And I mean everything. And the S&P Bud. This is your traditional salt and pepper blend with just a few extra spices that gives it that great little kick at the end there. It's also great toppings on veggies too. It's your good salt and pepper blend there. Check those and much more over at the madcanadianbbq.com. That is the madcanadianbbq.com. Use that promo code SLOOPCAST10 at checkout for 10% off. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, where they have your butt covered.
This episode of the Sloopcast also brought to you by the Iron Bean Coffee Company. The Iron Bean Coffee Company is an Ohio-based company, much like the Mad Canadian. They're from Northwest Ohio, much like the Mad Canadian, although they are in Toledo. They are in the Toledo area, Perrysburg more specifically. It's a veteran-owned company. It's a hand roast, micro batch roasting company. They're a roast to order company. Did I say veteran owned already? If I didn't, veteran owned. They're also fair trade certified and USDA certified organic. Guys, what else do you want? Oh, do you want the coffee to taste good? Well, I promise you, it does. For you audio only listeners, I just took a drink. You can't go wrong. It's the most integrity-based coffee company you can find. It's the most delicious coffee company you can find. It's the most moral, maybe moral and integrity in this context are the same thing, but most moral coffee company you can find. Sometimes it's hard to find a company that you feel good about supporting, that you feel good about giving your money to. Not in this case. So yeah, you can buy your coffee from the Iron Bean Coffee Company by going to ironbeancoffee.com. That's Iron Bean Coffee, America's local coffee roaster.
Going on YouTube and everybody in the Discord.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta wing it. I'd like the website up. Sometimes you just gotta wing it. That's all I'm saying. 3 cups of the Fear No Evil already today. I'm on 1 cup right now, but I will say it's a big cup. I'm not sure how big. It's a big cup and it's cold. It's cold brewed, so it's concentrated. So I might be right there with you.
All right, Jared, got some stuff to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump right into it.
You don't want to talk about multiverse theory?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
I really don't.
Okay. We've got barbecue back here. You're all invited. Welcome to the Sloopcast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing pretty well here, Jared. Just to appease Nomad, it is cloudy here.
We got full downpour here.
Yeah, it was raining here earlier, but
it's done. No more.
All right.
No more weather.
There you go, Nomad. There you go, some card. That's for you. All right. How are you doing, Jared?
The echo was on purpose. I turned the reverb on, Nomad. Is it gone now? Yeah. It was I did it on purpose. See, watch this.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh. Well, see, we don't use it very often, but here it is.
The Odin voice. All right, Jared, we got some stuff to talk about. We got some commits. We got some commits to the past week here. We got a highly touted player down to their top 5 schools. Really, we all know who the one's going to be there. And some pictures of a particular linebacker who never verbally committed
Hmm.
in Ohio, in
Yeah.
Columbus, to be more precise. So let's go ahead and start it off with the top of the news here. Two commits since the last time we talked. Well, one and a half.
Yeah. We told you, we it was an open secret what Kojo on Twee was doing. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Um, we all knew what he was doing. It wasn't a huge surprise. We told you on the podcast that he was going to commit to Ohio State. Um, and like we weren't breaking news. It was open secret at that point. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be like we told you. You know, anyone could have told you who pays attention to this stuff. I'm not trying to brag. But he followed through on it. In fact, he followed through on it, Kyle. What 15 minutes after we stopped recording?
Yes, he did. So
um,
so another highly touted wide receiver coming to Ohio State here. Uh, Following suit later in the week here, four-star offensive tackle George Fitzpatrick. I believe I got that name right there, Jared. Commits to Ohio State.
yeah, that one's European enough for us.
Here's a kid here, and the composite is definitely not the highest rated that Ohio State's got. It top 300 nationally, top 30 offensive tackle, but Ohio State really likes this kid here.
Can we talk about how Kojo's not a top 100 receiver? And though, I mean, if we're talking just about recruiting rankings, he's outside the top 100, which means fire Brian Hartline, obviously. I'm kidding, of course. I am one. By the way, so was Keon Grays when he first committed to Ohio State, and guess what? He's in the top 100 now. Uh, or no, he's not. But he's made progress. He's made a lot of progress toward it, and he very well could be in it or close to it by the time we get there.
And
But
don't forget, Chris Olave was a 3-star, 399th nationally.
yeah, yeah.
Let's not forget that. So two more players committing
trust the
to Ohio
coaches.
State here. What's that?
Trust the coaches.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, we talked about Zion Branch. We believe Zion Branch is coming to Ohio State. He just over the weekend here announces that his top 5, surprise, surprise, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and USC.
Yeah, he's a Bishop Gorman kid, so he has to include USC in his top 5. That is the law. A Bishop Gorman kid must include USC in his top 5 and then ultimately commit somewhere else. Those are the rules.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel I have high confidence. Actually, if I check my spreadsheet, which I already have open, although I have to go to the 2023 tab. No, I don't. That's his brother. Zion Branch, I have currently out of a score of 10 from a probability standpoint and out of a scale of 10, what's the chances he actually ends up at Ohio State? I currently have him scored as a 10. And if you're thinking to yourself, okay, what does that mean? I only have 2 people currently marked as 10 for the 2022 class, and one of them is George Fitzpatrick because I haven't updated the spreadsheet yet.
Yeah. Yes.
I also have Ernest Green as a 9 because I peek down to Gangland, who's currently in our live chat, who's predicting who's the next boom. Nomad asks Gangland, who do you think the next boom is? Who do you think the next commitment is? Gangland says, you know, in Wonkpa, the safety from Iowa, or Zion Branch, and I currently have Xavier and Wonkpa as a 9. So and like it's hard to get to that 9 or 10 in my scaling system. I don't know if I said this out loud, but I also have Ernest Green, the interior offensive lineman from St. John Bosco, out in California. I currently have him marked as a 9. So,
well, if I'm going to go with those two, I think we're going to see a boom from Zion first.
I don't know. He just released his top 5. I feel like procedurally that sort of maybe bumps him out a little bit because actually before the top 5 came out, I would have said, yeah, he's imminent. It could happen. I would have agreed with you. But the fact that he just now put out a top 5 makes me think he might wait a little bit longer. But I still have all the confidence in the world that he ends up at Ohio State. Him and his brother, who is a very talented wide receiver in the 2023 class. I actually feel, if we're talking 2023, sorry, just woke up. I'm still a bit froggy. AJ Harris, who is a top 25 overall player from the state of Alabama, cornerback. I kind of thought and I have him marked as an 8 right now, and I actually lowered it a bit because I think I had him as like a 9 or a 10. He released the top 12. Wait, no one wants to see your top 12. Guys, no one wants to see a top 12. Stop it. I'm just I'm all for let the kids do what they want. They're kids and let them I am so pro recruit that it pisses some Ohio State fans off. I really am. Yeah, let them decommit. I don't care. Let them do this. I don't care. It's the biggest decisions of their lives. Let them do what they want. But also don't release a top 12. Like I think that's where I'm drawing the line. I'm drawing the line at 8. You are not seriously considering 12 schools. I am sorry. I'm drawing the line at 8. And I'm only drawing the line at 8 because you're not the current recruiting class.
Yeah.
If you're the current recruiting class, I'm drawing the line at 5.
Not 8?
That's just the
Not 8?
No, I think it goes down at that point. It absolutely goes down at that point. If you're current recruiting class. If you're the next recruiting class, I'll give you 8.
Okay. All right. Last name here, Jared. Ooh, we thought George Fitzpatrick was tough. How about this one? uh, Pallier, now Teote. Seeing a bunch of pictures with him hanging out with the linebackers this past week here. So we talked about him potentially just showing up at Ohio State just one day, not making any kind of announcement. And I think this was it right here. There was no statement or anything that he joined the team or anything. And then here we are. You see him hanging out with the linebackers.
They're still working out some details with the NCAA. The super short version of this story is that Teote put his name into the transfer portal before the NCAA basically said, "Hey, because of COVID and blah blah blah, we're just doing open transfers." So like this one-time transfer rule that is now in place, he actually put himself in the portal before that happened. So that's just causing some bureaucratic BS with the NCAA. They have to figure out that bureaucratic BS, probably get him a waiver, which I have all the confidence in the world they'll get that waiver signed, but they need to actually get that waiver from the NCAA to make sure he's immediately eligible. So why haven't we seen an official announcement like this? NCAA bureaucracy. That's it. Why does it matter, though, if the rule changed? Because the NCAA is a giant bureaucracy. He put his name in the portal before the rule changed. Therefore, the rule doesn't apply to him. Unless Ohio State gets a waiver stating that it does apply to him. It's kind of like, let's say, I'm not trying to be political here, but just like marijuana is being legalized. I'm not saying one way or the other, but marijuana is being legalized. So just because if you are in Colorado or California or one of the states that has legalized marijuana, that doesn't mean that everyone who was charged, convicted, put into prison for marijuana, whatever, immediately then gets out of jail. Because they still broke the law that was there. Now, maybe they should be, maybe they shouldn't be. I'm not getting into those waters. But basically he did the thing before the rule changed. That's
Yeah.
all I'm trying to say.
Yep. All right. Sticking with football news here, Jared. Gene Smith. We already talked about a month ago. It was more than a month ago. Yeah, I think it was in May, about Ohio Stadium looking pretty good to go to 100% capacity in the fall. Well, Gene Smith coming out just recently stating that the stadium is going to be at 100% with tailgating as well this fall. So looking like
And a
things
skull
are going
session.
to be back to normal.
And the skull session's back on too.
Yes. Yes. Fire Kevin is always
Yes.
appropriate. Nomad. Yes. Fire Fire Kevin Warren is always
Yeah,
year round.
We should, like, the frame that we put on our YouTube video here, we should probably just incorporate it into the frame. That's just how universal that is for now on. Where
Yes.
there's no forgiveness there.
All right. Couple of news before we go into the main part of our episode today here. We'll talk about basketball, Jared. Basketball news. Here we are in July and we got some basketball news. We got a transfer from Louisiana to the Raging Cajuns.
Yeah. You just like saying, you just got
I
really
do. I
pleased
do.
by
Yes.
saying Raging Cajuns.
Cedric Russell transferring to Ohio State. We got a guard that Ohio State was in desperate need of here. Louisiana's Cedric Russell brings that guard scoring mentality that Ohio State's really needing here.
Yeah, and this is, I think, in direct
winter.
response to Washington sort of officially saying, yes, I'm in the NBA draft.
Yep.
And so Washington leaves, you go out, you get a replacement for Washington, and I think that's who Cedric Russell is, and I think he's a great scorer, and I think that's exactly what Ohio State needs.
Yep, exactly. And some controversy too. I'm all for it though. Malaki plans on wearing
Malachi,
thank you. Plans to wear number 22 this year. And those who don't know, number 22 is in the rafters. It's a jersey that's been retired. Thank you. Can't think of words right now. From Jimmy Jackson. But
can I say this?
A lot of people are like, why are they he's allowed to wear it if it's a retired number, it should stay retired. Well, if you go out and ask and say, hey, I want to wear this number, are you cool with that? Then I'm all fine with that. And that's exactly what happened here. Jim Jackson, he got approval from Jim Jackson and he's like, yep, you're cool. Go right ahead.
Here's my thing. I hate retired numbers. We should replace retired numbers with patched numbers. Basically, what that means is that should anyone ever want to wear 22, there's a little patch on the jersey that says Jim Jackson on it. So if a football player wants to wear 45, that's fine, but like it should have an Archie Griffin patch on it. Like they own the number. Now the fact that they own the number doesn't mean no one else can own the number. Because like if you're Ohio State football, you just have to stop, right? You can't keep retiring jerseys. You can't.
Yeah.
So now you have this locked system where no one gets to retire numbers anymore. Like that's just a thing we can't do anymore because we're going to run out of numbers. Okay, so stop retiring numbers and just find a different way to honor that player. And I think you can find a different way to honor that player by adding a patch or something to the number.
No, I agree to a certain extent with that. The problem is with NCAA, the bureaucracy that is, and regarding to jerseys, how jerseys can look and be displayed and all that. There's only so much that you can do on a jersey. And I don't know if it can add another patch on a jersey. I don't know if they can do that or not.
And I'm sorry to say this, but this was actually done for a season once. And I'm stolen.
You have to get a
I've stolen the idea, and I'm sorry, I stole the idea from Michigan. because they did do that one year where a bunch of, remember when their quarterback, whose name I can't remember, was wearing like 98, and they wore patches on the jerseys. They basically unretired all the numbers for a year and put patches on the jerseys to honor the people whose numbers they were. And I think that's great. I think it lends, instead of just saying no one can wear Horvath's number ever again, let's put his name right here. That's way better, in my opinion.
It could still have their jersey and their name in the rafters still, but no, I definitely agree with you, Jared. I just think there's just going to be a lot of bureaucracy that goes along to do something like
But
that.
there's a precedent for it. It was already done. That's all I'm
Okay.
saying.
All right. All right. I think that's all the news that we have here. Anything I'm skipping here, Jared? It was overall it was a pretty light week,
Yeah.
especially after JTT's announcement.
Yeah, like I can't put JTT in the thumbnail this week, so I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. 3 weeks in a row, we're breaking the streak. I put him in the thumbnail 3 weeks in a row on YouTube. I can't now. There's no more JTT news. What are we gonna do? Yeah, we talked about the unfortunate passing of the. I'm responding to Nomad. This isn't my ADD. Um. Uh. Yeah. The unfortunate passing of the Columbus Blue Jackets goalie. That news broke like right before we recorded, and I know we mentioned it in like the secret YouTube version of the show in the last sort of secret segment. And yeah, we didn't have any details at the time, and yeah, it's a terrible tragedy.
It is, yeah.
But I don't know if this is un-American or whatever, but like we need to reconsider fireworks maybe between what it's doing to our veterans, the amount of dogs that get lost and scared. Like the 4th of July weekend is like the number one weekend for dogs getting lost. It wrecks our veterans, and also people get hurt. I think we I don't know. I'm not saying we absolutely should, but I think it's a conversation we should start having, because
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. But I think maybe it is a conversation we should start wondering if we should think about fireworks.
Yeah. All right. I know it's a little early here, but I think this is a perfect time for a to hear from our sponsors here
Wow,
as we
that's a real
will.
early ad break. But no, I'm with you. I'm for it.
Yeah. So when after our ad break here, we will go ahead and talk about our primary topic, and that is our projection for the depth chart, our 2.0 depth chart projections here.
Whew,
So,
that's a tease right there.
so
Cal
let's
put
go
on
and
his
hear it
professional hat this morning.
from our good friends over at the Iron Bean Coffee Company, Jared.
Kyle, what kind of coffee do you want me to talk about?
I'm always a light roast, so give me some light roast.
Okay. Well, they got one light roast. It's a medium light roast. It's the Loki, which is like, is everyone watching Loki on Disney right now? Can I say I love it? I'm loving the new Loki series, and if you want to celebrate the Loki series, I suggest you get some Loki coffee from the Iron Bean Coffee Company. It's a medium light roast. It's an Ethiopian blend, and yeah, I love it. I'm not typically like a light roast guy, which I maybe like this is, but it's a medium light roast. But this has so much flavor, and it's still like highly caffeinated, so you don't have to worry about that. Um, like all of the other beans, it's USD certified, organic, and fair trade. The taste is smooth, never bitter, has subtle notes of citrus, um, very low acidity, strength, but still, very low acidity, but still has tons of strength and flavor. It's 100% natural. Nothing's compromised here. If you want something similar but maybe a tad bit darker, you can move from the Loki to the Thor. The Thor is a medium dark roast. Um, Again, you have this smooth taste that's not bitter. Has subtle notes of, and I'm reading this directly from the website, thunderstorms and lightning. What does that mean? I'm not sure, but that's what the website says. Um, I'm not as keyed in with like all the coffee notes and whatever as obviously the people at Iron Bean Coffee Company is. All I can really tell you from a personal standpoint with the Thor is that it's good. It's good. Now, if you're still thinking, I don't know, I'm such a dark roast guy. Like the Loki's a light roast, the Thor's a medium but kind of dark roast, but I'm a dark roast guy. Damn it. Well, then I would like to introduce you to the Odin. The Odin is the dark roast of the family. Um, 100% Arabica beans, which will give you the edge and confidence to slay your day. Again, like the Loki and like the Thor, it's smooth taste, never bitter, low acidity, high in caffeine, 100% natural, USDA certified organic, and fair trade. You can't go wrong. High moral standards, high coffee standards, high freshness standards. All the standards are high. We got 5 stars across the board. You can find those coffees and a whole bunch more coffees over at ironbeancoffee.com. That's Iron Bean Coffee, America's local coffee roaster.
This episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at the Mad Canadian BBQ Company. Mad Canadian has 3 box sets. Not sure what seasoning to order. Why not go with a box set over at the MadCanadianBBQ.com? They have the whole hog, one of each of the seasonings over at the Mad Canadian Barbecue Company. The sweet heat. I love the sweet heat of the other 2. I call it the chicken wing set. Includes the 4 horsemen, the Discord, old fashioned, 2 border, a little bit of everything, a little bit of heat, a little bit of sweetness. Can't go wrong with this. Or you can go with the Just Send It. It's their versatile seasoning, the S&P Bud, the Sonoran Heat, the Cajun, the smoked, a little bit of everything, and it should be your staple seasonings in your kitchen. And if you're fortunate enough to be in Ohio and you are able to attend the Mad Canadian food truck, just to let you know, the Mad Canadian has a new sandwich, Jared.
Oh my.
Did you know that they have a new sandwich? It's called the Big Bad Canadian.
Of course I know. I'm in the Discord.
It's their newest sandwich, a layer of brisket, a layer of pulled pork, topped with coleslaw, and a drizzle of their curry floodwater sauce. Less than a Kessler and more than a sandwich. And it looks delicious. So check out where him and his food truck will be at over at the Mad Canadian BBQ Twitter and Facebook pages. Mad Canadian Barbecue Company, where they have your butt covered.
All right, guys. Stuart E4US Vet says, I thought this was a shoot from the hip show. It is. We decided to do this depth chart prediction like 10 minutes before we just decided to record. So yeah, it's a real shoot from the hip show.
All right, let's get into it because we got to go through all the positions here, and we have 31 minutes, Jared. So
no, we have less than that because we have Ask Sloopcast questions.
Oh yeah. So all right, let's get to it. Quarterbacks, right from the top here. The quarterback position.
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud, Jack Miller, Kyle McCord.
JP Adondre and Jagger LaRue, thank you very much. Don't forget about Jagger LaRue. I like Jagger LaRue. But no, he's not going to start. Kyle, QB1, going CJ Stroud. I like Jack Miller a lot. I don't take it like I don't.
Yeah, as of July 11th at 10:45 a.m. here, I go with CJ Stroud as well.
Kyle, can I go bold prediction?
Okay.
Quarterback 2, Kyle McCord.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It really is. I can't blame you for that.
No disrespect to Jack Miller. The quarterback room is just stacked right now.
I'm still going to stick with Jack Miller as my QB too, but I can see why you go with Kyle McCord. But all right, I guess we're going to go with the slobs here, Jared. Going with the slobs and the center there.
Yeah.
Harry Miller.
Harry
Harry
Miller.
Miller. Harry
Yeah,
Miller.
that's not a question. And I'll also say that Luke Whippler is probably not probably. I would say he's definitely your backup center.
Yes. All right. All right. Let's go with the guards then. Who do we have for the guards? Obviously, PJJ.
Yeah. Paris Johnson Jr. I think is going to be your right guard, and if he's not your right guard, it's because he's your left guard. But I also think he's going to be your right guard.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
that one's probably pretty set in stone. Where things gets, where things get. I guess that was okay. Uh, Interesting is that left guard position, and Ohio State has an excellent problem here because I feel like they have a bunch of guys who can play that spot. I think we talked about Luke Whippler's definitely your backup center. I don't think it's unquestionable that he wins. I don't think he does, but I don't think it's out of the question that he could be that left guard as well. My personal favorite is Enoch Vamahi, but also like don't count out Matthew Jones. Just don't count him out. Uh, I think Trey LaRue will get a decent look. Um, Ryan Jacoby could get a decent look. I think they have options. I think they have great options at guard. And again, I'm leaning Vamahi, maybe Jones. And I think whoever doesn't win, I think like between Vamahi and Jones, the other guy's like your first guard in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed. No, I completely agree. Paris Johnson Jr. obvious, and then Mahi and Matthew Jones. Can't go wrong with either one. Can't go wrong with either one. The tackles, I think that one's pretty much set in stone there.
Yeah.
Munford and Nicholas Petit Free.
Well, and even your backup tackle, like your first tackle in case of injury or whatever, is also very much set in stone. It's absolutely DeJuan Jones.
Yes. Yep.
That's there. There are no questions, no debates. We are not taking follow ups on this. Those are your starting two tackles, and that is your, especially if it's left tackle. Especially if it's left tackle. If something were to happen to Petit Free, you could potentially see not DeJuan Jones come in, but maybe Paris Johnson Jr. bump
Yeah.
out
I
to
was just
right
I was going to
tackle.
say I was just going to say that you could potentially see Paris Johnson Jr. move out to the tackle as well. Then.
Specifically on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
Left side, it's I almost said Miller. Um, uh, yeah, it's absolutely Munford then Jones.
Mm-hmm.
That's a given. Um, I'm not sure what would happen if Petit Free, if anything were to happen to him, if that is also DeJuan Jones, or if they bump Paris Johnson Jr. out and put in someone to replace him at right guard. Again, between Vamahi and um, between Vamahi or the other guys who we mentioned, whoever doesn't win the left guard position, I think is probably your first guard in, regardless of
Yep.
left or right.
Yep. All right. I'm going to just skip down to the running backs, Jared,
Why would you go out of the show notes?
because I like a little chaos here. The running backs, Jared.
Kyle, I like things done in a certain way. Okay, I'm fine. I'm over it.
All right, running backs. As of right now, July 11th, Jared, in our 2.0, who do you have as your starting running back?
So,
Minnesota game. Who's your
Minnesota.
starting running back?
Master Teague.
Okay.
He's starting. He's starting the game. Does that mean he will get the most carries? Not necessarily. Does that mean that he will be starting in October or November? Not necessarily. Could
No.
Henderson end up being the starting running back at some point during the season? Absolutely, that is possible. But we all talk about Master Teague because he's the presumed starter for good reasons. Like, the hate has gone too far on Master Teague.
Agreed.
He is way better than people give him credit for. Is he a special running back the way Henderson has the potential to be, the way J.K. Dobbins was, the way Ezekiel Elliott was? No. But I think people forget how great he was during a certain stretch of the Ohio State season last year, before he picked up some injury issues, and before Kyle. I got no name. I can't pull names today. Someone help me out. The other running back from last year. I swear to you, my name recall ability this morning. The Adderall has not kicked in yet, and I just can't do
Steel
it.
Chambers.
No, the kid from Oklahoma. He's in the NFL now.
Oh,
I swear
Trey
to you.
Hundo.
I'm sorry.
Trey Hundo.
Yeah, Trey Hundo Sermon. Thank you. I uh, why is my Adderall not kicking in? Before he picked up at the end of the season, I think people really forget how good Master Teague looked at the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, I think Mayan Williams has the potential to be special, and I think Henderson has the potential to be special. And people are also forgetting about Marcus Crowley, who I think is really, really good. And also, like, there's Steel Chambers, but well, more on Steel Chambers in a little bit.
But man, we talked about like the offensive line being stacked. The running backs are stacked this year.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Steel Chambers in a bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with Jared. I think Master Teague gets the first look, gets the start in week one. Mine Williams and Trayvon Henderson will get some good looks as well in the first few games as well. But I think as of right now, it's Master Teague. Wide receivers, Jared.
Real quick, Gangland asks, was it the O-line or was it Teague? It's impossible to separate the two.
Yeah.
The O-line started playing really well towards the end of the season, which is why both of the running backs started playing better. It's impossible to separate it.
Nomad wants us to skip the wide receivers. It's too easy.
Oh, you say it's too easy, but I promise you I've made it hard.
All right. So
because we're not just saying the wide receivers.
Yep.
We've separated the wide receivers out into their three separate positions, and we're going too deep.
Yep, we are going too deep, so we're going 6 deep here. So starting with wide receiver Z, the Z route here.
That is Chris
CO2.
Olave.
That's CO2.
Yeah,
CO2.
The Z wide receiver is Chris Olave.
Okay, now who do we have as a backup to
CO2
there?
We're going true freshman on this one. We're going Marvin Harrison Jr. I think is who you see alleviating Olave in that Z position.
Mm-hmm. Yep, completely agree. Yes.
Stewart asks, explain the difference between the Z and the X. The Z wide receiver tends to, and this is an oversimplification, the Z wide receiver tends to be more the downfield threat, whereas the X wide receiver tends to be more of the route running underneath. One's a little, typically, one's, like I said, your deep threat, and the other one's more your route runner. Speed versus possession, I think Nomad says, is a good way of differentiating.
So X is more of your typically like your line of scrimmage or your flexed out receiver. Your Z is your deep threat there, like Jared said, and your Y, you can kind of sub in your Y to
Devin Smith as your deep threat wide receiver. That's your prototypical Z that we've had in the Urban Day era. And then think of Michael Thomas as your stereotypical X wide receiver.
Yep. And then your Y, you can plug in a wide receiver, or your Y is typically like your tight end as well.
No, slot. We're getting to slot. Slot is Y.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Your slot wide receiver is also your Y wide receiver.
Well, you could plug in a tight end to the wide receiver Y position too.
You could. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think Ohio State will this year.
But let's back up. So we covered the Z, Olave, back up to Olave, Harrison Jr. The X. So this is your flex. This is your your route running here. It's got to be Garrett Wilson here.
Yep, this is Garrett Wilson, absolutely
Now,
100%.
the backup to Garrett Wilson here. I want to see from the chat here. Who do you think that's in our chat should be Garrett Wilson's backup here?
Let's see. Gangland says Fleming or GW. Okay. He says Garrett Wilson / Fleming. So he's saying Garrett Wilson's the starter, Fleming's the backup.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um,
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's definitely. I would have Fleming there as your backup in the X position there, and then the Y position here, Jared. The Y one is going to be a lot more interesting one because I think this is the one that you could plug in a lot of people here. This is where you can put in um, Jackson. This is where you can put Emeka at.
Yeah.
You can put G. Scott Jr. there.
Yeah.
And dare I say, Jared?
No.
No?
No, we've named the wide receivers who are going to see time this year. We've a
few. Not everybody's favorite running back turned wide receiver.
No, sorry, no. Well, yeah, G is a massive slot receiver, which is why he's
he's a DB now.
Maybe. Yeah, G is a massive slot wide receiver, which is why they're looking at him at tight end. Because, by the way, they've also, to start talking a little, they've played Jeremy Ruckert in the Y as well.
He's got hands. You saw him back in the end zone there, Jared. He's reaching back here.
Because a lot of the times they like to put those big body guys at the slot wide receiver because they can block. Because that can be real. Because like it looks like you're in a spread formation, but oh, by the way, the slot receiver can block, so it's just as good as having a second or a first or a second tight end on the field. So you do see it's funny because your slot wide receivers are typically tiny shifty guys or tight end conversions.
Yeah. And just think of the players that you can put out in that wide position. Like you can all drive, you can have you're going 3 wide and all of a sudden you put a tight end out in the wide position. Like you put in Ruckert there, or even G. Scott if he turns out to be a pretty good blocker. Then all of a sudden you start doing
he's practicing with the tight ends right now.
Speed out runs then.
G. Scott is practicing with the tight ends right now. So he's learning to block, I promise. But okay, yeah. Kyle, we 1 and 2. And I'm putting Jackson Smith-Njigba as the starting wide receiver and Emeka Egbuka at the as the second wide receiver. All of this being said, I expect a great deal of rotation at the wide receiver position this year. Probably least so with Olave, as I do have his backup as a true freshman. I think Olave is the guy who you will see on the field the most. I think Wilson will obviously be on the field a ton. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I think you'll see a little more relief with him because you have Julian Fleming, who's a sophomore and one of the best wide receivers in his class. Could you, Gangland asks, could you see Wilson bump to Z when Olave comes off? No. Probably not. I think like they practice their position and the routes and they know those plays. Probably not, I would say. But also like we're hyper focusing and hyper categorizing something, but ultimately Heartline will just say, "Hey, you get out there." So we're really trying to put a rigid system over a thing that doesn't have to be so rigid. So
Nomad asks, is Fleming a freshman or sophomore after last year's rules?
I don't know.
Classify him as a sophomore.
Officially Ohio State has him listed as a sophomore right now. But with the rules of last year not counting, I don't know. I don't know how any of this works right now.
All right. So that's the wide receivers here. Tight ends, Jared, because I know we have to move on here. The tight ends, Rucker and Stover are my 1-2 for the tight ends.
But here's the thing: where does G. Scott fall into play? Because otherwise, I would agree with you. Yeah, it's Ruckert and Stover. It's Ruckert and Stover because like Ohio State early on was looking at getting a transfer portal tight end into Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they backed off of that is because they were pleased with how well Cade Stover was adjusting to the transition to tight end.
Yeah. I mean, as of right now, again, in our 2.0 mock here, I have Stover as the number 2.
Right. And that was absolutely how we felt about everything until they started talking about G. Scott moving to tight end. So now I don't necessarily know how things are slotting.
That's I'm going to stick with that right now. Ruckert 1, Stover as 2. And
Yeah,
just like the
because
running back,
I don't know what to do with G. Scott right now. Again, if we're trying to put people into a rigid depth chart, I'm not exactly sure how to.
yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what label or what position he'll be under, but don't worry, G. Scott Jr. will see the field. I'm just
So
not
is
exactly
there
sure where or how yet.
is G Scott a should be classified as a new position, kind of like the bullet position on defense?
I mean, it's not new necessarily. He's just like a pass catching tight end. I mean, we saw Kyle Pitts do this at Florida last year, but we've also seen guys as far back as Shannon Sharp in the NFL doing it for the
Yep.
Broncos in the 90s.
Yep.
Um, I like Gangland asked what about Royer. I like Royer. He's just not as a redshirt as a second year player. I just don't see
Yeah.
him contributing to a lot to normal snaps right now.
Yep. All right, we're going to move on here, Jared. So the defensive side here, going to go with the DTs, the big slobs in the middle here on the defensive front here. Who do you got here, Jared?
Your starting two are Haskell Garrett and Taryn Vincent. And I don't think that's up for debate. I think Jaron Cage is going to get a lot of snaps. There's going to be a lot of rotation. Antoine Jackson's going to get on the field. Especially later in games, you'll see sophomore Ty Hamilton get on the field. Um, but I think if we're talking about a two deep, it's it's Garrett and Vincent at on the field as your two starting defensive tackles with Cage and Jackson as your next two in.
And don't forget too, there was a lot of talks of the return of the Rushman package too. So
Yeah.
you could possibly see some of those defensive tackles being off for the heavy load that is the defensive ends here, Jared.
Yeah, so your Rushman package, essentially what you're going to see is probably your nose tackle, which is probably like Vincent and Jackson, come off of the field. You see a guy like Haskell Garrett probably bump over to nose tackle, and then a defensive end come in to play the three tech defensive tackle.
Yep.
Um,
So
this is the same thing we saw Nick Bosa do as a freshman.
yes.
Because
Yep.
he wasn't starting as a freshman, but they brought him in obvious pass rushing situations to play three tech defensive tackle.
Yep. So defensive ends then, Jared.
Yeah,
I think
this is fun. This is
this one's
interesting.
fun. I right now your starters Harrison and Tyreek Smith. They got a lot to prove this year. I cannot remove them from your starters though.
No,
You can't
they are your starters, absolutely
now
100%.
now for the backups though. The backups here. This is where it gets fun because you got
I don't.
JTT who's
Yeah.
now officially with the team. You got Jack Sawyer who has a lot of buzz, had a great spring camp. You got
Beast.
Tyler Friday. You got Javante John Baptiste. You got Noah Potter.
Don't forget about Noah
How the
Potter.
hell do you start this as your backups? Like it is so crazy. Like it's almost that you almost want to switch everybody out every play. It almost seems that way.
You're going to see heavy rotation at the defensive ends this year. Harrison and Smith are your starters, period. Especially in September. Especially in September, those are your starters 100% absolutely. I know we're very excited about Sawyer. I know we're very excited about Tuimoloau. I get it. You're very excited and you should be. I'm not trying to lessen their hype. They have a ton of hype and they should.
But don't forget about Potter and John Baptiste and Friday still. Very, very talented defensive ends.
That being said, I do think Sawyer and JTT are going to get more reps than anyone not named Harrison or Smith.
Yeah.
I especially Sawyer because he came in the spring. So that's not me knocking JTT by any means, but Sawyer
Definitely.
was here for the spring and Tuimoloau wasn't. So I do think that you'll see Sawyer probably be the first. I honestly, even in September, your first defensive end to rotate in, I think will be Jack Sawyer. And if we're talking about that Rushman package, if you're putting a defensive end at the 3-tech defensive tackle on a 3rd and long, it's Jack Sawyer, I'm pretty sure. Yes, even as a true freshman. Yes, even though Noah Potter is insanely talented. Yes, absolutely all of that, yes. Um,
Definitely going to be paying a lot more attention to that defensive end this year and just seeing who's coming in every single play.
yeah. And again, Jack Sawyer, I think, is the number 3 defensive end on the team right now.
All right.
Right now, he is the number 3 first guy to come in defensive end on the team right now.
Yeah. Can't argue that right now.
And JTT, I think, will be that guy at some point in the season. Maybe even week 1. Maybe even week 1. But I'd say right now it's Noah Potter. Right now, that 4th defensive end is probably, if not, it's either, I would say either Noah Potter or maybe Jean Baptiste. But I think it can be JTT at some point during the season.
Yep. Yep. All right. Linebackers, Jared.
God, I don't know.
We might need some help here, folks here. Linebackers.
I'm lost. I'm totally lost on what the hell's happening with the linebackers.
Yeah. Nomad says no idea. So here's the list of names here. So we have Tereja Mitchell, Dallas Gant, Craig Young, Kevon Pope, Cody Simon, Steele Chambers,
And
Tommy
we're comfortable
Tommy
calling.
Eichenberg, and not to mention the name we just mentioned at the top of the show here, Palaye as well.
Yeah. God, there's a lot of talent here, especially if we're looking at recruiting stars. The question you do have to ask yourself, especially if we're looking at the 3 seniors and maybe even 4 seniors if we're including Teote in this conversation. If we're including him in that conversation, we have 4 seniors here,
Mm-hmm.
all highly touted, but at the same time, if you've been watching like last year's linebackers and wondering why aren't they playing the young guys? Those guys aren't young. They were juniors last year. Why weren't they playing?
Mm-hmm.
Why did they think that last year's linebackers were their best options?
Yeah.
So you do seriously have to question, why wasn't Mitchell, Gant, Pope, and Teote obviously at USC, but why weren't they seeing the field more? Why weren't they getting rotated in more, even if they weren't starting? You have to ask that question. Does Ohio State need to recruit over those guys? Has Ohio State recruited over those guys? Will those guys, if it becomes evident to those guys that they, and of course, like the transfer portal for eligibility for this season is closed. We've that clock is ticked over. It's closed. So anyone who puts their name in the portal now would have to sit out this season. I'm pretty sure. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's happened.
But if we're going by a depth chart here, I think I'd put Mitchell in there as maybe your middle linebacker. And then I'd probably put, man, I'd probably put Gant there as well as one of the outside linebackers.
It's real easy just to be like Mitchell, Gant, and Pope. They're the three seniors. And again, we have to ask the question, why weren't they challenging for those starting positions when Ohio State was obviously having linebacker position issues?
Yep.
Why do they move Steel Chambers from running back to linebacker? You can say, well, the running back room is stacked. Sure, and it is. But they're going to the transfer portal to find more linebackers. They're going to the running back room to find more linebackers. The coaching staff obviously sees deficiency in the room. And when you have three seniors who've been on the team the entire time, that should make you feel good. All right, we got three seniors ready to go. But every indication from the Ohio State staff thinks that no, we are not ready to go. So what happens here? Do we see sophomores like Craig Young crack the lineup instead? Do we see Steel Chambers fresh into the room crack the room instead?
Don't forget about Tommy as well, a name that we heard a lot as a recruit.
And also Cody Simon. We've heard had really good camps. Tommy Eichenberg had a really good camp. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Reed Carrico as a true freshman cracks the starting lineup, but I think it'll be real telling to see how often he maybe even gets on the field as opposed to other guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have no idea what's happening in the linebacker room. So part of me just wants to throw the three seniors in there, especially for week one. But I can't. I kind of want to say, I want to agree with Kyle that Taraja Mitchell is probably in that. But I kind of want to say like Craig Young and Cody Simon, or maybe the other two. But I honestly don't know. The linebacker room's a mystery to me.
Mm-hmm. All right. Defensive backs, Jared.
Real quick, Gangland asked, do we possibly run a 4-2-5? And kind of, because you have that bullet position.
Yeah, if that bullet position, you could probably see more Craig Young in there. If you're doing that bullet position, possibly.
So it's kind of like a 4-2-4 plus 1. You know what I mean? Like it's like a 4-2.5.
It's like 4-2-1-4. So it sounds like a soccer position. So
yeah. So I mean, sort of. I will say, sort of. It just sort of depends upon is the bullet guy a linebacker or a defensive back? So is it a 4-3-4 or is it a 4-2-5?
Yeah. All right. Defensive backs, Jared. Defensive backs. Sevyn Banks.
Just Sevyn Banks will be great this year. I have all the faith in the world. Sevyn Banks will be fantastic this year. With a full off season, with his new defensive backs coaches and his new defensive coordinator, knowing he's going to be the guy, I think Sevyn Banks takes an enormous leap forward this year. I have all the faith in the world in Sevyn Banks. What I don't have a great deal of faith in is who's going to be opposite him.
Yeah, you got a lot of young defensive backs in this room, and
I want to say
other than Sevyn Banks and Cameron Brown, the rest is redshirt freshman. It's a very young group here, so it's really hard to. Right now, it's really hard not to put Cameron Brown on that other side of the defensive backs right now.
And you would if not for the injury.
Mm-hmm.
He tore his Achilles in October.
Yep.
That's for a defensive back where you have to backpedal and transition out of that backpedal. That Achilles is nasty. That's a
Yeah.
nasty Achilles. Nasty. The Achilles is a nasty injury for a cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
And if not for that, or had that happened to him during the summer or the spring, and last spring, and he had plenty of time to, then yeah, I think it absolutely would be Cam Brown. But the injury might be too much for him to overcome to be an effective corner this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then other backups you can look there. Uh, Legend Calvos.
Cavazos.
Cavazos. I can't read. Yes. Legend Cavazos. You also have Cameron Martinez and Ryan Watts.
And those are your three guys. I think if
Yep.
we're talking about who's going to be CB2, it's going to be one of those three guys. Those are your three redshirt freshmen. Um, yes, I think those are your guys. Gangland, Watts, Ransom. I see Ransom more as a safety, potentially in that bullet position. So again, if you want your defense to be more of a 4-2-5 as opposed to a 4-3-4, you want maybe more of a safety bodied guy as that 11th player. Then instead of looking at Craig Young as the bullet, maybe you're looking at Ransom or Hickman as the bullet. Um, or at least like a walk up safety corner sort of guy. I've put him in the safeties for now. But I like Ransom a lot. I think Ransom could start. I just don't think he starts at corner. Um,
So speaking of that, then your safeties, Proctor and Ransom.
but for real quick, I think that you could see a 3-person rotation at corner, especially in September, at that second corner spot. Um, but to me, it's absolutely Cavazos, Martinez, Watts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning more towards Cavazos and Martinez right now, and maybe Watts is going to play more in the slot. Um, but yeah, I don't know which one of those three it's going to be right now, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I am leaning Cavazos. So if I have to pick one, and I do because that's what we're doing today, I'm going with Cavazos. But just know that I feel like it's going to be a big rotation.
Okay. All right. Safeties then, Jared.
Yeah.
Proctor and Ransom. Any arguments with that?
Yeah, I will. First September, was it September 2? Is that the game? Um, against Minnesota. For
I think
September
so.
2, no. I think Proctor and Ransom are probably the guys. But again, what kind of defense are they going to run? Because if they want that safety to be more of a walk up linebacker sort of guy, then I might lean a little bit more towards Hickman. And also, I don't think Proctor's job is safe. I don't think it's so much like Master Teague. Yes, I think Proctor is your starting safety September 2, but I also think he he can't walk into this like it's his job because I think Ransom, Hickman, Court Williams all have the potential, more so Ransom and Hickman, to steal his job. Much like we're looking at the freshmen at the running back position, you have to look at those redshirt freshmen at the safeties as guys who could potentially absolutely 100% steal Josh Proctor's job if he's not on top of his shit. But I do agree with what you said as far as September 2 goes. As far as like
Yes.
September 2nd, Proctor and Ransom.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, and I think Hickman will definitely get some look at. Uh, maybe Court Williams if all goes well, but yeah, definitely Proctor and Ransom are
I would
my.
actually have to say that things would have to go very unwell
Well,
for
yeah.
Court Williams. Yeah, I'm not trying to disrespect Court Williams. I just think of the they brought in three safeties last year. I just have Ransom and Hickman as a slot above him right now.
Yep. All right. All right. Moving on. You want to talk about the kickers and punters?
I mean, that's what we're doing here today, right?
Okay. Kicker Jake Siebert, and your punter is the Aussie Jesse.
Yeah, but I do think we have to acknowledge that Ohio State spent a scholarship to bring in, or maybe not actually, because maybe his scholarship doesn't count. Uh, the 2020 doesn't count thing has really screwed over
Mm-hmm.
my ability to count scholarships. But they brought in from North Carolina Noah Ruggles uh, to be a kicker. They only get him for 1 year. Maybe they're just trying to buy Siebert some time because he is a redshirt freshman. Maybe he's an insurance policy. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what's happening here. But Siebert seemed to be like the guy, the next guy up. But Ohio State did go out and get a graduate transfer kicker. So we have to acknowledge that and what that may or may not mean. But
Okay.
yeah, Jesse Mirko, I think, is your guy. Michael O'Shaughnessy's on the team and could challenge for that punting spot. But yeah, I think it's Jesse Mirko.
Yep. 100%. And then we still
He
have a
he did
McCullough,
have a rough spring game. Yes, Siebert did.
but we still have a McCullough as your long snapper.
Yeah, Rowan McCullough, long snapper. They actually have a bunch of long snappers, and I just like to assume that Rowan McCullough is the long snapper, only because he's a McCullough.
Yes. Yes. I think that's it, Jared. And as is tradition, we are way over on time.
All right, we're gonna have to speed around these Ask Sloopcast questions.
All right. Duncan, less is anything less than at least one natty in the next 3 years going to be considered a disappointing with this recruiting class?
Yes,
100%. Yes. Uh,
especially if you take into consideration not just the recruiting class that is partially and will shortly be on campus right now, but also the 2022 recruiting class.
mhm.
Especially when you get a quarterback in like Ewers
Yeah.
and like McCord, and yes,
Is Day really a better recruiter than Meyer, or is it just harder to negatively recruit Day because he doesn't have the age slash abrupt Florida retirement slash medical condition?
what? Yeah, first, yes, he's more difficult to negatively recruit against than Meyer. Um, Meyer's history of abrupt retirement, everything you just said, and also just Meyer rubbed some people the wrong way.
Yep.
Let's just say it. He rubbed some people the wrong way for many different reasons. And Day just feels, at least Day's public image right now, although I think he's a lot more ruthless than people give him credit for, is just they his nickname is the rosy cheeked assassin. It's a borrowed nickname. It's not an original nickname, but that's what people are saying. He's like he's an assassin, but he also just he's kind of like he comes across as sweet, and like his thing is mental illness awareness. Like that's the charity he's taken up. He and his wife, and he just feels like a really good guy. But the thing that I think is huge is that he has that quarterback guru attachment to him.
Yep.
Whereas Urban Meyer, rightly or wrongly, partially rightly, especially later on, was just like, you want to be a quarterback for Urban Meyer? He's going to turn you into a fullback. He's going to fuck up your shoulders. He's going to make you run. Da, 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 da. Whereas, and I think it's helping with the wide receiver recruiting a lot as well, Day runs something much, much closer to an NFL system in the offense, for the offense, than Urban Meyer did, and I think that's huge for recruiting.
Yep. All right. Kabuto.
But also, just sorry, I know we're supposed to be lightning rounding this. I'm sorry. Let's not underestimate Pantone here.
Yeah.
Pantone's the recruiting director. Urban Meyer brought him here. He's still here. So when we talk about, oh, the recruiting didn't dip after Urban Meyer left. Mark Pantone.
Yeah. All right. Kabuto. Given the new one-time transfer rule, should the you can't talk to other team players rule should be changed? I think it would be good for players and reduce the guys lost in the transfer portal. What do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
But also
Buckeye,
there's ways around it.
yeah.
Like the coaches can't talk to him, but you know who can talk to him? A player. So
Yeah.
I mean, what happened? What got Justin Fields to Ohio State? It was Dwayne Haskins. Ryan Day can't go to Justin Fields and say you should transfer here, but you know who can? I already said it.
Yep. Buckeye Zach said, in addition to Kabuto's question, with the passing of NIL in most places and the gradual establishment of it, do you think this gives athletes, their programs/schools, and the conferences a way to force the NCAA into a more agent-friendly league where trade talks could begin and commence?
Not trade. No, not trade talks. There's no trading in college football. There's because players aren't under contracts. So
Yeah.
trading is not and will not be a thing in college football unless players actually start signing contracts, which are essentially exclusive contracts. So, like, when a player gets traded in a name your professional league here, what's actually being traded is the contract to the player.
Yeah.
So, no contracts equals no trades.
Yep. All right. Nomad, should Jared be punished during a future recording for daring to say anything good about the team up north player?
I assume he's talking about the fact that I acknowledge that Tom Brady's the best quarterback to ever quarterback in the NFL. But you have to listen to what I said because there was also it was a real backhanded compliment because I also said that Michigan couldn't be successful with him and ruined him. So if you have the best quarterback to ever quarterback and you didn't have success with him and he wasn't that good while he was at your school, how fucked up is you? That's it. That's all of it.
All right. Well, he wanted me to make sure that about how we should punish you, Jared. But
I'm not accepting punishment because it was not a compliment towards the school. In
okay.
fact, it was a diss towards the school. So I'm not accepting punishment.
All right. Should the toilet paper go over or under the roll?
Over.
Yeah, I always like over. Over's always better.
Why would you want to reach behind when you can reach on top?
All right.
This is not even a question.
Gangland asks, how many touchdown passes will Jack Miller and Kyle McCord have against the team up north? Also, when does Stroud get pulled from that game for safety?
I don't know. I'm having trouble enough trying to talk about who the quarterbacks will be for September 2nd, let alone Thanksgiving.
I'll go with two.
Sure.
I'll go with two, just because Stroud will have a number already.
We'll set it at 1.5.
All right. And last question from Buckeye Zach. Oh no, he says that last question. The answer should be 105. For how many points will the Buckeyes hang on Michigan?
There you go.
All right. All right. That's it, Jared. We are way over in time, so let's go ahead and end today's episode.
All right. Check out thesloopcast.com. There you will find all sorts of stuff. Links to our social media things and links to our t-shirt things and just links to all of our things. There, I did it. Kyle, do you have anything in Kyle's corner?
Carmen's crew.
Yeah.
We talked about Carmen's crew a little bit here. Caleb Wesson will not be part of the team heading to the NBA summer league. So good for him. Good for him. I can't blame him for that. But then income Costa Kufis. That's a name that a lot of Buckeye fans know. Costa Kufis has had 10 plus years of NBA experience. He's over in the Europe League right now. So got a big guy coming in here. So I think that's a fantastic add-in for Carmen's crew. Fantastic.
But it sucks losing Caleb Wesson.
It does, yeah. And also, Jared and I are heading to the crew game next weekend.
We are. Kyle will be in town next weekend. Unless something crazy happens, we will be releasing a shelf episode next week. It's an episode that we recorded weeks ago at this point. So it won't be news. It's like I said, it's a shelf episode. It's an episode that we recorded a long time ago that has nothing to do with like the happenings of that immediate time frame. So that's probably what you'll be getting next week, just so you know. But it's a lot of fun. Like I said, we already recorded it. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So honestly, look forward to that. But again, if something crazy happens, then we might have to do something. In which case, we'll both be in this room. But it's our goal to put the shelf episode out next week.
All right, that is it, Jared.
All right, tonight's ending music brought to you by a Columbus band called Snarls. Give it a listen. That's it. Just give it a listen. And by the way, the YouTube people, you don't get the music because YouTube and such. The links are down in the show notes. So if you want to listen to the songs, you can go down there and click the link and you can listen to the song. Just so you guys don't feel completely left out, you can go listen to the song. It's down in the show notes. And that's it. Again, Columbus band by the name of Snarls. The name of the song we'll be playing is Walk in the Woods. It's from their newish album. I think it was released maybe in March or April. So yeah, you can do that. So with all that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course support your local podcasters. Once again, this is Snarls. We have dog cam. We're active dog cam on Kyle's side right now.
Yes, we got Leo. Leo decides to join in today, right, bud?
You
Retired.
can see the back half of LG right here.
You can.
She's in her canopy bed.
You see a dog? I think he's trying to stare. Nope.
No.
Nope.
She's got her chicken wing hanging out there.
So I went to Acadia National Park.
Is that the shirt you're wearing?
I am, yes. It's a very beautiful place in Maine. If you haven't been there, it's near Bar Harbor and all that. Very beautiful
Bahaba?
place. Get a chance to go. Bahaba.
Bahaba?
Bahaba and Lobsters and just and Fallout 4. Is that where it's at? It takes place. I've falling out a Fallout.
You have fallen out of Fallout?
Far Harbor. Okay. I did not know that. I only got into the first one. That was it. I haven't had much time to play much games recently.
unless it's Zelda.
Yes, unless it's Zelda. Unless it's Zelda.
Zelda and Minecraft.
All right, let's go ahead and end
Okay.
the episode.
I once again would like to thank Snarls for ending today's episode. That is Snarles. I don't know why I did that. I just decided to spell it. I don't know why. So yeah, that was Snarls, and they ended today's episode. But today's episode, I don't know when you're listening to this. I'm not the boss of you. Was brought to you by the Iron Bean Coffee Company. The Iron Bean Coffee Company is an Ohio-based micro roast to order, veteran-owned, fair trade certified, USDA organic coffee company. Did I do all the things, Kyle? I was doing that one from memory. Did I forget any of them? I don't think so. All right, Kyle. We talked about a light roast. Then I went through the whole spectrum. Let's talk about one of the most adventurous bags of coffee you can buy, and it's called the Unicorn. And so, what kind of coffee is the Unicorn? I don't know. Neither do you, and neither does anyone else until they actually bag it. Um, was it a carrot cake? Was it a peppermint? Was it a chocolate brownie? A ginger snap? A blueberry cinnamon? Normally, this unicorn of coffee is a rare, majestic, and is something that we throw in for free from time to time in random packages. But you can also, like I said, just buy one. Um, but the coffee is still up to their gold standard. Don't get that twisted. Like they're absolutely always up to the gold standard. It's just a bit out of the research and development room. Um, Normally it's unrepeatable, but often it's kept the exact track of what they're experimenting with on the R&D coffee, the small passion projects of the people in their staff. Sometimes you get a description and sometimes you won't. Uh, that is just how the unicorn works. It's an adventure. That's just what it is. It's an adventure. And if that's a sort of thing you'd like to sign up for it. And if it's not, don't. They have plenty of flavored coffees in which you know exactly what you're going to get. There's the carrot cake and the you can go into that murder line of coffees where they have like a red velvet cake and a blueberry crumble and all sorts of other flavored coffees that if you want to know exactly what you're getting, you can get exactly what you're getting. But if you're the adventurous type and if you maybe want to get a once in a lifetime sort of coffee, I would like to recommend to you the Unicorn. So you can buy that coffee, a bunch of flavored coffees, a bunch of non-flavored coffees. And by the way, sometimes mugs. And like they have French presses and some other cool stuff. And you can find all of that over at ironbeancoffee.com. That's Iron Bean Coffee, America's local coffee roaster.
This episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at the Mad Canadian BBQ Company. Uh, we're going to mention one seasoning here as we were talked about the Iron Bean Coffee Company, and it has the coffee and Q. He has here. Have you ever been up all night cooking barbecue, or had to wake up really early to throw your food on so it's ready by dinner time, or even maybe record a podcast? This seasoning is inspired by those exact situations. A blend of coffee and barbecue seasonings that offer just the right about the coffee flavor and barbecue flavor that will add that something extra to your food. Great on, he puts beef, poultry, and pork, everything. It's great on everything. Now probably blended with cast iron coffee from the Iron Bean Coffee. Also, see here the schedule. He finally puts this up as we're recording it, Jared. The schedule for his food truck Monday. So as we're releasing this, going to be in the Arlington Community Pool in Arlington, Ohio, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Cary Senior Depot in Cary, Ohio. This Friday from 11 to 3 at the Millstream Bank in Findlay, Ohio. And this Saturday, be heading on over to Fremont for the Fremont Food Truck Festival from 3 to 8. Again, if you need a reminder of those times and places, check out his Twitter page, his Facebook page, the Mad Canadian BBQ Company to find more information about that. Mad Canadian BBQ Company, where they have your butt covered.
Make sure to follow and subscribe to both us and the Buckeye Scoop and the Buckeye Sloopcast YouTube channels. Links to those two things should be popping up on your screen right about